Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of YOML. As you all know, this is the year of magical learning, and we are on book 143. And to continue with our theme of the entrepreneur and business, today we want to take another step further on how to, know when, when your product is a market fit or not. So I'll let Chris reveal what it is.
Yeah, this is a weird book. This is it actually doesn't fit, and it's kind of funny because it doesn't really fit with most of this journey, right? The book's called the Mom Test, and it's how to talk to customers and learn if your business is a good idea, by the author Rob Fitzpatrick. So basically, what the Mom Test is all about is about conducting customer interviews and really getting to the bottom of whether or not somebody's going to not just say you have a good idea, but like, will they pay for it, and do they have a problem, and will they pay for it? So that's really what the book is about: conducting customer interviews and conducting, getting to the root of the problem before you really dive into like investing a lot of time and effort and energy into building a product. Right? Are you talking? You're on mute.
Yeah. Just validating your business ideas. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a way to ask the questions in a way that you don't ask your mom.
Right. Yeah.
The idea is a good idea because she'll always say yes.
Exactly. So it's actually a good book. I actually highly recommend it if you're looking for some guidance around product validation. Right. The funny thing is my reflection title for this one is you can't test art. You can't mom test art. So if you're looking to sum this whole thing up, and I'll give a quick backstory, but I know we have a short condensed conversation tonight. So I actually read this book with David. This is the David and I was the first after I was coming out of the rubble from the atomic blast, right? And trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I started to feel like I was back on level ground. Like Amelia and I had gone through a lot. Feel like I was starting to understand my values, my purpose, things like that were coming in. I didn't really fully understand what I should do, but I knew that I was at least going back onto the path to the life that I think my daughter would be proud of, and to honor her. And it was really early on. So this is like 3 or 4 months after my daughter had passed away. And I was getting more confident again to like kind of re-enter the world a little bit. So that was when I started to search for the world of business is what I knew, right? I didn't know what that new paradigm was going to look like. I didn't know where to go apply this stuff to, and I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that I wanted to do something different with my life. But I went back to the old familiar world of dusting off some of the ideas that I had in the past, to try to put a new spin on it, that was more in alignment with the life that I had promised my daughter that I would try to live. That was when I put that message out into the world. That was when I first met my first potential co-founder of this business idea that we were going to go through, right? And I wanted to always have that lens of values and purpose and doing something different. That person didn't. But he agreed to wanting to live to try to do the value driven approach first. So we read a book. That was what we agreed to do first. That was our first business activity that we did, and I let him pick the book, and he was like, hey, I've been wanting to read this book called The Mom Test, and I was like, okay, fine, let's check it out. So we read this book, and it was actually really helpful. But shortly then after, he decided this wasn't the right fit for what he wanted to do, and we agreed to part ways. And then ironically, to be honest with you, he didn't really get what I was trying to do. And then the universe delivered, right? When you want something, the whole universe aligns to make it happen, right?
Yes.
Like from The Alchemist, and and comes true. Like about a week after that, that was when I had reached back out to you, and we had our first meeting, and from the get-go, you kind of got what I was trying to do, right? And the vision that I wanted to create, and then it became our vision, eventually, of living that value-driven approach and meaningful work, meaningful relationships, things like that, and starting with why before we started with the what, right? So that was what you and I set out to do, and here we are, 2.5 years later, still on that quest, right? This book, ironically, was one of the only books that I read before our Your Magical Learning journey really kicked off together, right? So it was a weird period of time where I didn't know what I was trying to do and not trying to do. The funny thing is the thing about the mom test is like you only do a mom test when you're trying to figure out if something will solve a problem for somebody else and bring value to their life. The irony of all ironies about this book is I don't care about solving other people's problems and bringing more value to other people's lives anymore. Like this whole entire Clubany experience is all about, you know, living what your values and bringing value for yourself and finding other people that share in your values and building meaningful work and meaningful relationships, which is why the title is You Can't Mom Test Art, right? Like, because what we're trying to create is art, right? It is not something that needs product validation and customer, you know, as anything, if you tried to mom test Clubany, like, I mean, people would probably like I can't even imagine if you tried to mom test Clubany. Yeah, my mom might go, that sounds really great, Chris, you know, but everybody else would probably be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about with meaningful work and meaningful relationships and building this ecosystem with, you know, people can connect their values and match it all the crap that we talk about, you know, and what we're trying to do. You know, it would just fail in spectacular fashion, and that's kind of the point, right? Like, because you can't mom test art, that's Clubany in a nutshell, right? Art is personal. Clubany is personal. It's about breaking free from those traditional business world that's really focused on just money and growth, and to create a whole new paradigm of unlocking personal values, and that's turning those individual values into meaningful work and building great relationships, and it's the exact opposite of the mom test. So that was the reflection for the day. And the question was, you know, what would happen if you stopped focusing on unlocking value for others and began focus on unlocking value for yourself? So I'll pause there. I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so my thought is that, you know, art is personal. Clubany is personal.
Right.
Life is personal.
Agreed.
You know, you see the trend. So for me, it's like in the entrepreneur world, in the business world, you are to solve other people's problem. Looking back at it, it sounds a lot like work.
It does. That's exactly what this book is. Like, when you want to go do a work project to solve other people's problems, read the mom test. If you want to create art, don't read this book.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, in the beginning, before we started Clubany, that's what we're trying to do. That's why we pick up these books, and these books are telling you how to solve people's problem. Now that I'm as a member of Clubany, I don't want to solve other people's problem. I want to solve my problems.
And in turn, you solving your problems will eventually maybe solve other people's problems.
Exactly. And that's exactly my point. Is I'm solving my problems, and there are a lot of people who have the similarity to me who want the same solution. And that, to me, is play. If I solve somebody else's problem, that's work. I'm thinking back at the, you know, on those days that we were trying to build this business, right? To me, it feels awful. It feels like it's being forced.
It's awful. It is being forced. I mean, it really does suck. I mean, it really sucks. Like, I mean, actually, you know, the funny thing is about like businesses, like, I think of some of the most successful businesses that kind of just came from nowhere in modern history, in recent history, like a business like Slack, right? Just kind of came out of nowhere and took over the world. Like, they built Slack. I don't know if you know the origin of the customer of how the story of Slack was built, but it was not built by mom testing it. Like, if you mom tested Slack, it probably wouldn't have survived.
No. And I can give you a similar story where I built. So I was hired as a consultant to come in and analyze a software and see where it has issues. I analyzed the software, then they want me to rebuild the software. So while I was rebuilding software, I was building a tester so I can test out the software. Right. But in the end, the tester was what they value more than what I built, which is like, it's like maybe 1/100th of the effort of the software that they hired to build in the first place. Because I just built a tester.
You solved a problem. Like, you created art and you solved a problem that you had that the other people had as well, right?
Yeah. Like, because the thing is, you mom tested, nobody want it. And you know, why would you want to build a tester? Because the tester is supposed to be thrown away. That's the intent of the tester. Right. You don't build anything for it, but whatever you can piece together as a duct tape mechanism, and you're trying to put something so they can use it once or twice and then throw it away. But at the end of the day, they keep using it and using it and using it, and eventually they say, "Oh, I love this so much," so they become the big hit. The other thing where they pay me like thousands and hundreds of thousands, even close to $1 million, they don't even use.
Right. Yeah, which
Use the test.
which is hilarious, right? Like Slack is a similar
Exactly.
story, right? Like it was an internal communication tool that they built for a gaming company that they were
They're trying to
producing
build
a
that
product
game, and they
for.
put millions and millions of dollars into the game.
Right.
And
But
that game failed, but they
right.
needed to communicate with the team members inside of the company. So they built this,
internal tool. Yeah. I mean,
it's like a duct tape piece of a software. It's
right.
it's not like designed out. It's not mom
No.
tested or anything like this. Just put together, just run through it and stuff. And that's how most of these big companies become so big, is because you can't mom test art. I
Yes.
completely agree with you on that reflection title. You can't mom test your life and say, "Hey, is my life good? Is my life,
Right.
how do you like my life?" It's like, it doesn't work that way. And like I say,
Exactly.
being as a club member, I'm looking at, okay, this mom test book. This book is actually the #1 book that is recommended that you have to have
Are you
read
kidding?
if you are a member of the YC, Y Combinator. It's a #1.
Are you kidding?
Yes, this is a must read
That's hilarious.
for the any YC members. And to me, it's like, because I would have believed them back before before company, becoming apparent in my life. But now I'm looking at it and say, well, these things
So
just
stuff.
it's not exciting for me. It's like I'm thinking about how I'm forcing people to do this, how I'm trying to find out other people's problem. It doesn't resonate with me at all. It's like, wow, it's just like mind numbing kind of thinking, right? For me, it's like, I don't want to find your problem. Your problem is too much for me. I don't care about your problem. I care about my problem.
I could give you 500 million examples. Spanx, like Blake or Sarah Blakely or whatever her name is.
Right.
She started that for herself because she couldn't find freaking, whatever Spanx are. Like she couldn't find anything that would work for her life as a professional working woman.
Under Armour.
You got what was the other one I was thinking of? The guy that does Walker and Company, that's like black men shaving stuff and things like that. Like
right.
it was specific for, he was an entrepreneur in residence at I don't know, some like Andreessen Horowitz, I think, or something like that. And he was searching, probably mom testing a lot of things or whatever. And they were like, just do stuff that and he was like, yeah, okay, what I know, I have this is a problem that I have. I'm sick and tired of when I shave, like black people a lot of times get really irritated, bumps on their neck and stuff like that, because they don't like certain razors and creams. And I don't know, I'm not a black guy, so I don't know exactly the issue that they experience, but for whatever reason they have that kind of stuff. So he went and found products, and he made a product that and then he marketed it to people that were had similar problems, and it took off, right? And ended up becoming a big hit. It was in Target, and but that was an artistic thing that he did, like.
But to me, the appeal to me is that when you're working on your problem, whether that's fasting, that's dieting, that's nutrition, or whatever, it is so much interesting to you,
right?
Because you have that problem, you want a solution,
right?
If you're going out there and you're trying to solve somebody else's problem, it seems to me, in my mind, it's so mind-numbing in a way that it's like I'm getting a headache continuing to think about it. But when I'm thinking about my stuff, right, I have a clear headed, I have a direction I want to do, I have the energy, the motivation for whatever reason it comes from inside, and it makes that time so much more enjoyable, so much. And in time, I mean, it collapses when you do that thing for yourself versus you build something for someone else. Because when you're trying to find a problem you want to solve for people, right, it's not personal to you, so your brain has no incentive or motivations to even try it. So you're forcing your brain to actually process it. And it basically regurgitate, like it's thrown up inside your head. Like,
if you cannot connect with what you are producing, Like there is no reason to produce it, in my opinion. I just finished a book by Seth Rogen, who's like a comedian, right? And it was hilarious, and the reflection will come in the future. But one of the things that that I was writing about this today, actually, ironically. So fun story from that book. He was 16 years old. He was doing a comedy show where he was trying to audition for like this national like stand up, youth, like competition or whatever. And he was in LA doing this stand-up gig, and he totally bombed, right? Just like it was an epic fail because he was doing jokes about like crazy glue and biker cops, and things that were like just generic things that he thought like people may think were funny or stuff like that. And some comic, anyway, he completely just bombed. And some comic that was at his performance was back in his hometown a couple months later. I don't know the time frame necessarily, when he was doing another stand-up thing, and he talks to Seth before the show, and he goes, Seth, he was like, man, what the hell were you doing back in LA? He was like, that was awful. He was like, what was that? He was like, what do you mean? He was like, you need to tell stories about your life. He was like, what do you do on the weekends? He goes, he's like, you mean as a 16-year-old? And he goes, yeah, what do you do on the weekends? He's like, I don't know. We try to get beer and go to stink into strip clubs. And he was like, right about that. He was like, do that, right? And he goes, do you have a girlfriend? And and Seth goes, yeah, no, I did for 3 days. It's kind of funny. She broke up with me. Like, and he goes, and the comic that he was talking to just started cracking up, and he was like, right about that. Like,
Yeah.
And that was when Seth said for the first time in his life, he goes, I was able to turn my pain and in my own personal life and turn it into comedy. So he started writing about these things, and then it kind of was a wake up for him, because it started resonating with audiences. Like the truth is if it doesn't connect with you, like it's not going to connect with anybody else either. So like it's irrelevant to Marm Test something, because like if it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't, like who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I have no interest in solving some other problem that I don't see value in it. You know what I mean? So I can say, well, let's say I'm 5'6", right? So if I'm trying to solve a problem for a guy who is like Shaquille O'Neal, for example, he has a lot of problems. Like he has like problem with hitting the door, when we through the door, then he has hit the. So I solve that problem, solve the better, like make big beds or whatever, make big pans of, if I don't have that problem, but for me to solve a problem like these, basketball players, right? To me,
I don't know.
It's awful. It's a miserable kind of time thinking about how to solve problem that you don't have. It's like, I have no incentive, no motivation to do that. So I mean, did your mom test that? Is there people have problems? Yeah, they do. They do. They say yes. Yeah, I have problems. Will you pay for it? Yeah, I'll pay for it if you can make a bed that fits me versus a bed that my legs falls out on the floor whenever I lie on a bed, right? So I mean, if your mom tests those kind of ideas, right, it will pass. But it's terrible for you, because as an entrepreneur, you will hate your company. You will hate what you do. Then there's no point. What's the point in life? Yesterday we said, life, right? Work is life, but life not work. You work to live, but you don't live to work. And so there's no need for you to do things just to make money, but have an awful life. Think about it. If you have trillions of dollars, but you sold your soul for it, what's the point? And you can't tell anyone what's the point. And that's the thing, is life is meant to be enjoyed. It's not to suffer. If you suffer and you force yourself to suffer, that's on you. I mean, and we're telling you here, like, you have options. You can decide what is good for you. And art is personal. Company is personal. Your life is personal. Your life, how good it is, depends on what you want and how you fulfill them. It's not the same for me. It's not the same for you, right? It's all different. It's all personal. And so the mom test, it's good in some aspect, but it doesn't work in life, because life is art. So you can't mom test art. Therefore, you can't mom test company, and you cannot mom test your life.
Agreed. I mean, I think we're 100% in alignment on this. I find it even funny as we're talking about this. I find it even funnier because, like, we've spent an ungodly amount of time talking about meaningful work and meaningful relationships and values and bringing them to life. And I mean, like, I can't even imagine how much time that you and I have had conversations about this. And if we didn't care about this shit, like, it would be like, man, if you just told me to like produce a podcast with you every single day about, I don't know, name something, name a topic, fishing, like, or whatever. Like, I would run out of things to talk about after like 20 minutes, because I'm like,
the thing is, you can
I don't
ask,
care.
you can ask me about fishing. I can ask you about fishing, but it's not going to have a long conversation because we
No.
have no interest in it because we never fish. We don't know how to fish, right?
Right.
But you talk about, for me, you talk about fasting. For you, you talk about challenges, and you talk about writing and right, and learning. You and I can talk all night long, days, weeks, months, 2.5 years. How about
that? Right. Like, and could you ever have mom tested that with somebody? They would be like, no, that's like, what, I don't know what the fuck you guys are trying to do, and I don't really care. Like, this is not gonna work, and who knows, it may not, but we don't really care. But that's probably the reason why it will work.
The point is that, for me to do the podcast, to do the company event like these, right? For me, it's not. I'm not exerting energy. I'm actually gaining energy. For the motivation, give me energy. So even after a long day of exhausting work, right? Head banging type of thinking and analysis of whatever, right? My brain's exhausted, my body's tired.
Right.
But when I get onto the podcast, we're talking to you about the things that it matters to me, whether that's health, challenge, like being, learning challenge and all that. It invigorates me from that until I go to sleep. Sometimes, I stay up past midnight just because my brain is firing, it's thinking. But the thing is, it's thinking in a way that it makes it feel good, and it makes like as if that's the kind of drugs that you want, versus the other one where I'm thinking about, even for me to think about for a split second about how to mom test an idea and how to go through all the brute force of trying to find the solutions and trying to do things that I don't like. Right, I'm feeling a headache coming out.
Just you talking about it makes me want to go run for the hills at this point in time. I mean, and to be fair, a few years ago, like that would have been, we would have done this. Like, this is what I would have been like. Well, this is what you're supposed to do. Like, you got to go get VC funding. You got to go mom test things. You got to go do this. This is how you bring a widget to market. This is how you make money and make your investors happy. Like, I give no shits about making somebody happy other than myself and to a certain extent you. You know what I mean? Because you can.
Yeah, and I respect that, because I feel the same way. Because the thing is, the thing that brings us together is what we value that has in common. Right.
Exactly.
If one of these days where our value doesn't align, right, you go your separate ways, and I will respect that, because the thing is, we have to stay true to our core values. And if you don't stay true to your core value and you pretend it, right, you are going to piss me off, because for one, you stay away from the mission of the company, and second, is you wasted my time and you wasted your time.
Yeah,
and
for
me,
sure. And you'll feel the drift. You'll internally feel the drift.
There's no reason why you need to force anything, because if the meaningful work doesn't exist no more, then you find other one. That's the point of clubbing. The point of clubbing is to give you a blueprint for yourself as a guide, to say, find your own life core values. It's not my core value you should take. It's not Chris's core value you should take. It's not company's core value you should take. It is your core values, right? And if you find your core values, and if it aligns with one of us, join us and talk about it, because there's no need for you to talk about the core values that you don't have or want to have. Let's say you want to talk about having fun, or having travel, or having exhilaration, or having adrenaline. For me, I like peace. I like serenity, right?
And balance. Yeah.
You and I, that person and I don't mix. They don't need me for the mix. I respect what you do. You need to respect what I do, because, and if you go your separate way, then I go separate way. That's the way it should be. Don't try to force a hand. I can be serene. I can be peaceful. If you don't want to, why pretend? What's the point?
If you put if you put extreme candor or radical a radical
Yeah, I
candor
think,
or extreme ownership.
that's not
If you
for
put,
me,
if you,
you know.
if you put
Go find
radical
another
or
group.
extreme in anything, I'm gonna be like, we're probably not gonna jive. Like, I'm not gonna. I
No.
don't want to go extreme. You know, what was that book? Extreme.
Extreme ownership.
Oh, extreme ownership. Yeah. If I don't want to go extreme ownership on everything. I just, it's fine. Anyway, all right. So I know we have to abbreviate our conversation tonight, which is probably a good thing because we would probably talk about this for another hour.
Yeah.
But that was a fun one. That was a good conversation, and hopefully we should send this into the Y Combinator and be like, boom, mic drop, like
Mic drop.
yeah.
Send it with an anime gif.
But the question we could leave for anybody tuning in is, what would happen if you stopped focusing on unlocking value for other people and began instead focusing on unlocking value for yourself? Think about that. And
yeah, I like the way you think.
Yeah,
I don't want to solve other people's problem. I want to solve my problem. Exactly. I have more problem than I want. So I want to solve my problem. I don't care about other people's problem.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you all on Monday.
On Monday. Sounds good. Good night.
See ya.